Hi, my name is Kay Petrie and this is my yoga playground. Today we're going to do a class called Hips Don't Lie. So a lot of us have such tight hips, whether it's because we're sitting all day at a desk job or perhaps we're runners or cyclers or athletes and we're just really tight in this area of our body. So we're going to do a quick workout where we can help open up these hips and feel a lot more comfort in this part of our body. So we're going to begin today with our goddess flow, beginning by starting at our mats, facing the long edge of our mats, toes out, heels in. We're just going to start by flowing and bringing in some blood into our muscles, and so that we can stretch a little bit more later on in this practice. So as I said, toes out, heels in. Let's bring the tailbone down, shoulders back and down. And goal posting our arms this time with the elbows in line with our shoulders. And maybe just bringing a smile today on your face. Taking a few deep breaths here with the mouth closed, breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. And we'll begin flowing through this goddess flow, bringing our fingertips together overhead and then squatting down, opening up these hip flexors, keeping the knees in line with the big toe or somewhere in line with the middle toes, really keeping those hips open and sinking our bum down as low as we can. No worries, we're pretty tight right now, so maybe we're up here, that's okay. Keeping those arms goal posted. Let's just hang out here for a few breaths. And there's no worries about moving around, shifting your body a little bit, just finding that place that feels good for you. There's no need to just feel like you need to stay still when you're doing yoga. At least I don't. All right, let's inhale, bring the arms up, fingertips together. Exhaling, we're going to squat down, and this time let's bring our elbows into our sides. Palms are facing back, pushing back, facing forward. Inhaling up. Exhaling down. So just some dynamic movement here, inhaling as we rise, exhaling as we come down. Just really beginning to warm up those hip flexors. No worries if we're not going down very far just yet. Inhaling up, exhaling down. As we practice today, let's remind ourselves that we're all individual people. What you're doing is going to be different in form and in shape, probably than what I'm doing. And someone else is doing something different than I'm doing, and that's okay. We're flowing in the same direction, but our bone structure is probably different. Our experiences in life are different. Let's be kind to ourselves and do what we can just for today. And that might be different tomorrow. And today's practice might look different than what it did yesterday. And that's what yoga is all about. Just living in this moment, letting go of anything that's going on outside of this little mat that we're standing on. So we inhale as we rise and exhale as we come down. So we should be at about 15 probably. Let's come back up for sun pose, palms facing up, shoulders back and down. Let's open up that heart center, gazing up towards the ceiling or the sky, depending on where we are. Taking some deep breaths. On our next inhale, let's bring palms together overhead. This time we're squatting again, hinging from our hips, swan diving forward. Let's keep the spine long all the time, reaching out through the crown of the head until fingertips touch the floor. We are bending the knees here, sinking our bum down. If the fingertips don't touch the floor, no worries. Let's place a block out in front of us and let's bring the floor up to us. Okay? Flowing through this, let's reverse that swan dive. We lead through the crown of the head, the heart. We reverse the swan dive. We come up with the knees, all the way up, hands together. Flowing through this time, exhaling, let's come down. Inhaling as we rise. Exhaling as we Come down, inhaling as we rise. As we move through these, let's let go of any competition that we might have with ourselves. Maybe we're practicing with someone and we're trying to do just as good or just as, we think that they're better, but we have to do what is right for our bodies, for ourselves. Let's not judge ourselves today. Yoga is a gentle practice. And even though perhaps we are competitive, I'm competitive in my business, I'm competitive in sports, I'm not competitive in yoga. We leave that off the mat. We take time to just flow, focus on the breath, let go of everything else. Let's do 3 more of these. I always encourage you to have some good music, some good tunes on in the background, and that can be anything. We don't have to have flowy, serene type music, which is fine if that's the mood that you're in. But put on some Shakira or put on some anything at all. Whatever floats your boat. This is what it's all about. All right, that's more than 3, I think. Let's come back up and let's keep the legs spread, but this time we're pointing the toes forward so that they face the mat. We're going to take as wide of a stance as is comfortable for us so that we can hinge forward from our hips. This might be a great time to have some blocks out in front of you if you're not able to reach the floor yet. Now, always keeping at least a micro bend in our knees, but we can bring a deep bend in the knees if we need to, especially if we have very tight hamstrings. If those hamstrings are very tight and we try to hinge forward, it's going to impede our body from being able to come forward properly. So bending the knees will really help that, okay? So let's take a deep inhale, arms up to the sky. Exhaling, we're hinging from the hips, leading from the heart for a standing straddle splits. Fingertips to the floor. Remember, blocks are more than okay. Blocks, pillows, whatever you want. If we're there, we can bring palms to the ground. We're not rounding the back. The back is nice and long, that long spine. If it's available to us, we can spread the legs even more. And we have some options here while we're in standing straddle splits. We can stay here. We can bring the hands to our shins. We can walk the hands behind us if we want. Always keeping that long spine. Inhaling, we can rise slightly. Exhaling, folding forward a little bit more. No worries if you have that slight bend in the knee. Always encouraging at least a micro bend in the knees to protect our joints so that we are fluid and healthy for a long time in those joints. Let's take a few more breaths here. And then walking the fingertips up. And let's toe heel so that we're into a forward fold, deep bend in our knees if we want to, and stepping forward to the front of our mats. And that's the short edge of the mat. Bending the knees deeply on the inhale, let's reverse swan dive, coming into an exalted mountain and hands to our heart center. So we should start feeling a little bit warmed up now in our hip flexors. And we're going to come into a modified hand to big toe. So we're not going to actually bring the hand to the big toe and step out at this point. We're just working on opening up those hip flexors. So standing forward, let's come hip width apart. Placing the weight in our left leg, spreading the toes wide. Taking the right hand, let's grab to the inside of our thigh. We're going to bring the hands somewhere around underneath the knee. If we are working on our balance, we can use a wall here. We can use a chair out in front of us, whatever that we need for ourselves for this practice. Goal posting the arm also helps with balance. Now let's take that hand, grab underneath the thigh, behind the knee, and we're working on opening the hip. Now we might be just here for today, and that's okay. Let's take an inhale, and on the exhale, let's open up that hip. So we're bringing that knee out towards the right, keeping that left hip facing forward. We're really going to feel this in this hip flexor. No worries about bringing the toe down if we need to catch our balance. Taking a few breaths here and coming down. Awesome. Moving on to the next side, finding all four corners of our feet in that right foot this time. Let's take the left hand, grab to the inner thigh underneath the knee, finding our balance, and then opening up that hip. Chances are we're really going to feel this. Most of us, unless we're practicing a few hours of yoga every day, and it all depends on the type of yoga that you're doing too, chances are we're really tight in this part of our body. And it's amazing how tightness in different parts of the body can cause tension in other parts of our bodies that are completely what seems unrelated. Very good. Let's come down. Bring that knee forward again, hands to our sides. Let's take an inhale, arms up to the sky. Exhaling, let's let it all out through the mouth. Coming to the top of our mats. Standing bone hip width apart, getting ready for a forward fold. On the inhale, arms up to the sky. Exhaling, forward fold. Chances are we have a little bit more length in our legs right now, always keeping that micro bend in the knees. Let's bend the knees deeply, bringing the hands to the ground, starfishing the hands. Moving into downward facing dog. Let's take one step back and then the next. Bending the knees, hips up towards the sky. Shoulders back and down. Pedaling the feet out, walking the dog. Really doing what feels good for your body here. We can even bring both heels down to one side, come back to the center, bring both heels down to the other side. There's no competition here. Remember, if the heels don't touch the ground, that's more than okay. What we're aiming for is bringing those hips up towards the sky, letting the heart sink down. Creating that V shape in our body, and that might mean that we're keeping that deep bend in the knees. Perfect. And we're going to keep working those hip flexors. On our next inhale, taking the right leg, point those toes all the way up to the sky. And then this time we're going to bring a 90-degree angle in that leg and let that right heel drop back towards the left glute, opening up our right hip, gazing underneath our right armpit. Really feeling that openness in the heart, in the hip. Keeping even weight in those two front hands. And on the next exhale, let's come back down. Pedaling the feet out again. If we need to, let's drop to the knees. Take a few breaths. Otherwise, just staying here. Noticing the difference in your body from left to right at this point. On the inhale, let's bring our left leg up towards the sky, pointing the toes, bringing that leg to a 90-degree angle. Let's let the left heel drop towards the right glute, opening up the hip, gazing underneath the left armpit. We're still working that right heel down towards the earth, keeping our down dog position, placing the hands into the mat, spreading the fingers wide. Coming back down on the exhale. Awesome, let's walk those heels out. Getting ready for pigeon pose, bringing the right leg up towards the sky, swooping that right knee in towards the right wrist. Letting the leg drop, our right heel is towards our groin. Letting the back knee drop to the ground, untucking the toes. Perfect. Our hips are squared to the front of the mat. We can walk the left knee back if we want. Really feeling that in the glute, in the hip. Feeling it in the hip on the left side as we're stretching out the left leg. Perhaps this is where we are today. That's okay. Maybe we have some blocks out in front of us to keep ourselves propped up. If we wish, we can begin walking the hands forward, bringing forearms to the ground. Keeping those hips squared to the mat, taking care that we're not leaning to one side or the other. If we do that, we're losing the stretch that we're looking for. If we're comfortable on the forearms, we can continue moving forward until our chest and forehead will rest towards the earth. Any discomfort here, we pull back. We can place blocks underneath the right glute, underneath the left hip. Whatever it takes to make this a comfortable pose for you. So after about 5 or 6 breaths, we begin by walking the hands up if we've made our way to the floor. Coming onto fingertips, bringing palms to the ground, moving back to downward facing dog. Let's pedal those feet out, really feeling the difference in our bodies this time, left to right. This time coming into pigeon pose on the left side. Taking the left leg, bringing it up all the way up to the sky. And on the exhale, bringing that left knee into the left wrist. Left heel is towards the groin. Walking the right heel back. Squaring the hips off to the front of the mat as we did on the other side. And we're just going to begin walking the forearms down, remembering we can use the blocks if we need to. There's nothing special about the floor. One of my teachers told me that once, and I believe her. Nothing special about the floor. It's what we learn on the way down to the floor that's important. Perhaps someday we get down there. But again, all our bodies are different. Breathing in as deep as we can. Letting go of the tension. Five or 6 breaths. And we begin walking the hands back up. Planting the hands on the mat, coming back into a down dog. Oh, we're really feeling those hips now. The tension is beginning to erase itself, slowly but surely. On our next exhale, dropping the knees to the earth. Coming to a seated position, facing the long edge of our mats. Or short edge, whatever works for you. Preparing for a double pigeon pose. With double pigeon, we stack our shins together. If that's not available to us just yet, we can just keep one leg out in front, and it's okay if the knee is lifted. In our seated hip openers as well, it's always handy to have a pillow or block that we can have, and sitting up on that will really help open up the hips as well. So if it's available to us, we stack the shins. Toes are pointing forward. By pointing the toes forward, we protect the knee joints. So keeping this time the right leg underneath, left leg up top. And by doing that, we're really feeling this in this left hip, the left glute. We sit nice and tall, sitting on our sitting bones, reaching up through the crown of our head. Taking an inhale, exhaling, let's release the tension in our shoulders, our back, bringing those shoulders back and down. We can stay here. If we want to take it a step further, let's inhale, bring the arms up overhead. Exhaling, we hinge from the hips, lead from the heart, and walk the hands out in front of us until perhaps we have forearms down to the ground. Another great place for our blocks, right here in front of us. And we can reach forward. The further forward we reach, the more we're going to feel that stretch in the hip, in the glute. We're not feeling it so much on the right side right now. We're feeling it on the side where the leg is stacked on top. On our next inhale, walking our way up. And all we're going to do this time to keep things balanced out is bring the top leg to the bottom, bottom leg to the top, flexing the feet, toes pointing towards the shins. You'll notice this time that we're feeling it on the other side where the other leg is now on top. Staying here, if we wish, inhaling, arms up to the sky. Exhaling, hinging from our hips, leading through the heart, always keeping that long spine. Once we've extended fully, if we wish at this point, we can let ourselves relax into it. Letting the spine round slightly at this point, but only once we've fully extended ourselves and come down. On our next inhale, walking our hands up. And one more final pose to work on our hips today. We'll work on frog pose. A few different options that we have here, coming onto our knees. Beginning with the knees hip width apart, but this time we're going to bring hands down to the ground. We can make fists for wrists if we want. And we're spreading the legs open as much as we can. Let's keep the toes flexed towards the shins, just like a frog. So we're really feeling this in the hips this time. From here, we can start bringing forearms to the ground if it's comfortable for us. This is a pretty intense stretch. So if it's a little bit too much, what we can do is do a half frog. So we'll bring the right leg all the way back and then just keep ourselves with the left leg in a frog position. And then we can switch sides. So whatever works for us, we can take the position that is best. If we find this hard on our knees, we can always place pillows, blankets, towels underneath the knees. Walking the hands up and bringing ourselves to an easy seated position. Oh, feeling those hip flexors now, feeling good and loose for the rest of our day. This is a really great practice to do, probably daily if you can, if not a couple times a week. Really encourage anyone that's sitting all day long or is quite active and tight in these areas of your body to practice at least some of these poses on a regular basis. Bringing our hearts together to our heart center and bowing to each other and recognizing the wonderful beings that we are. Namaste. My name is Kay Petrie, and this is my yoga playground.